slideshows in North Omaha. You add up all the retail sales and other stores, clothing, sporting goods, groceries, building materials, etc. You add that all up in terms of the neighborhood, and it totals $103 million. Well, we know for a fact that people are spending a lot more than that. They spend a lot of their income outside of the neighborhood, and we can quantify that. You add up all of that expenditure of residents from the neighborhood, adds up to $173 million. That means that almost $70 million in sales is happening outside of the neighborhood. These are people that live in North Omaha that spend their money for expenditures outside of the neighborhood. So we see as an opportunity that $70 million that really the North Omaha residents are exporting represents a potential opportunity for additional retail development, commercial development in North Omaha. In fact, if you take that $70 million and calculate, well, how much square foot of additional retail would that support? And again, how can we capture more of the retail expenditure inside the neighborhood boundaries? The primary gaps that we saw in that analysis are for grocery stores and other kinds of retail like that. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to clothing, food, groceries, and entertainment were the categories of sales that could be captured with that $70 million that's being spent outside the neighborhood. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Bob Peters to talk about the physical layout and issues related to the north side neighborhood.
Thank you, Gary. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. It's kind of a rare opportunity for me to be back in the heart of North Omaha after working in the community with most of you for 3 decades. The great thing about this job is you get to associate and meet some new friends. And Tony Goldsby, who was introduced earlier, Richard Lambert, a few others you'll meet over the next several months are rare individuals, great talents, and they're going to help progress the agenda that will result in creating an opportunity environment in the North Omaha community. This is an aerial shot of the neighborhood, so it's not really the neighborhood on the ground, but we're going to get into that. So not surprisingly, this is information that you and I have learned together over the past 30 years. So if anything that needs to be focused on, please fill out your cards, bring it forward, and if it presents an opportunity or a gap in services or a threat to this community, let's talk about it tonight. So as Gary said, the study area is 3 miles square. So basically 36 blocks by 36 blocks. It's comprised in the western portion of the study area is largely residential. Generally west of what we'll talk about to quite some length probably tonight is this old northeast to southwest railroad beltline that was abandoned years ago, and the industrial fabric that aligned with that rail system has deteriorated, largely laid fallow, and it creates this access and impediment to transportation as you travel east and west in the neighborhood. This drops out that are local, or maybe the remnants of those, or those that have been put to other uses that are quite visible throughout the community, are at the various intersections of those lines. So 24th and Lake, 16th and Locust, 24th and Ames, 30th and Ames. We have 30th and Lake, where we are here, 33rd and Parker, and 40th and Hamilton are probably the most notable in the neighborhood itself. Not unknown to any of us, there are a lot of vacant lots in North Omaha. Actually, some 3,400 vacant lots. So is our vacant lot glass too full? Or half full, half empty? Maybe it's just too many, but I think what it does, we have the emerging riverfront development, the North Downtown or NoDo development, where currently there are 4 hotels under construction, the new Slowdown, Saddle Creek Records, new music venue, along with new film streams, new digital and art film theaters are under construction. We have Creighton University along the south edge, and we have Midtown, the Omaha Public Schools TAC building. And this is an interesting slide or image, in that it really shouts out, as Tony Goldsby and he and I shared a day yesterday talking a great deal about this, is that there's very limited east-west connections in the neighborhood. The neighborhood, granted, was developed at a time when the grid system was the old Union Pacific grid. They came in and laid it over the landforms, ignoring what may have, resided underneath. At the same time, the newer street projects or arterial projects or freeway projects have created barriers for the connection, the reconnection, or the connections through the neighborhood. Again, there's probably another slide. Yes, which the lozenge is that belt line. And that belt line, as all of us know, separates east from west within North Omaha. And then that separation is emphasized or reinforced by the separation that the North Freeway created. Yes, granted, does it have limited access across it? Yes, but if we go back to the vacant lot image, which we won't, but two areas with the greatest number of vacant land resources are that belt line and either side of the North Freeway. Public transportation. The use of Matt's bus system in North Omaha is largely an east-west route to 72nd Street, primarily to the retail and employment opportunities there, and then south into downtown. The public transportation street connections, so where railroad tracks once severed it, where hills and ravines have made it impossible to, or economically feasible, to extend those street systems, we think it's important to invest the dollars and recreate the grid network of lots so that neighborhoods can be reestablished. Obviously, higher visibility. Councilman Brownvite and I have talked through for a number of years about the routes that many of us, friends or visitors to North Omaha take, and how our first impressions aren't necessarily the best, and how those thoroughfares east and west, north and south through the neighborhood should be enhanced. So the boulevards are actually treed streets, not just a name that says that Florence Boulevard is on a post, and you have to imagine, or do you even think about imagining that it was once this wonderful tree-lined canopy that welcomed visitors to North Omaha. And obviously, the pedestrian network, it needs to be safe, it needs to be well lighted, it needs to connect the residential neighborhoods to the retail centers. Not surprisingly, and what we'll talk about, I'm sure, tonight in our question and answer, and then in the upcoming months, is we need to provide increased economic opportunities within the community and also engage our youth. There have been many, the article in Sunday's paper with Bright Futures. If anybody read, I'm sure many of you read that. That's one of many efforts that's focusing on how to enhance opportunities, both from the viewpoint of education and employment for Omaha's youth. Adams Park probably should be related to this statement. Provide features and amenities that attract people to live, invest, and work in the community. We don't have the solutions at this point in time. We're attempting through, we obviously have a quite diverse consultant group. Some of us have lived here their entire lives, some for getting close to almost 75% of mine, and others that are seeing Omaha for the first time. But through their eyes, we have identified other opportunities or begun conversations to investigate how best to either enhance, fill the gap, or reinforce this rich fabric of the North Omaha community. The idea, not surprisingly because it's been well promoted as what this project is all about, is to create a self-sustaining retail and development market in the community. How do we do that? We aren't there yet, but we're going to get your input tonight, and when in the upcoming public conversations, especially in the neighborhood discussions, the first of which is tomorrow night, which welcome many of you to that. We'll explore some of the opportunities and some of the applications that hopefully will create a more dynamic community. I don't know. You know, the efforts about, we talked about establishing a stronger sense of community cohesion, a common enterprise. This is a pretty together neighborhood. I think more people have to witness it, be involved in it.
Done this sort of thing in a lot of other places, and people like Bob and Marty that have lived here for many, many years. The upcoming project events, it starts with the neighborhood meetings tomorrow night. We'll be meeting at the Lake Point Community Cafe. Very much want people to be able to keep abreast of what's going on. Things like this presentation, the ERA, Economic Research Associates report, which will look very specifically at the economic status of the neighborhood, will be included.
It says this: watching your PowerPoint presentation, you already have plans laid out before this meeting, so you seem to tell us what you were going to do, regardless what the people think. I don't know. That obviously is not what the message was tonight. We're here to hear from you. We have no preconceived ideas. We think we've identified some gaps in services, and we've identified some opportunities. We've identified resources, but at this point in time, we're still in the information and data gathering phase. We have a survey of both those statistical survey of people that live in this neighborhood, who work in this neighborhood, who shop in this neighborhood and other neighborhoods, that will be completed over the next several weeks. And we are asking for your input tonight, and at the community meetings that will not only be neighborhood-based, but the forthcoming community-wide meetings, so that we're able to frame what those opportunities and solutions could be. This question is: North Omaha is plagued by high crime. Can any new development in North Omaha really be sustained if the high crime rate isn't first addressed? Tony, would you like to comment on that?
That's a good question, and I think there's as an outsider, there's two ways this town is being perceived, this area, and it's really difficult to discern what the actual reality is. But there seems to be like a heavy perception of that North Omaha is a very bad and violent place. I went today to North High, and I wanted to talk to one of the teachers there. His name was Derek Davis, and I asked him, what do you think about the neighborhood, especially what do you think about North High School as a place? He said it's a great high school. I mean, he came here from Blair, Nebraska. He drives here every day just to teach here because he thinks it's a great school with great kids, and also, a good sense of community. And so I think I struggle when I hear the idea that North Omaha is a bad place or any worse than anywhere else. I think that it has its fair share of problems that need to be addressed, but I don't think bad people live there, and I don't think it's holistically, it's a completely dangerous place. I think it has its elements that need to be addressed again, but I think the perceptions and the image of the place, I think, tend to mar the community more than it really should.
How do you deal with that perception? Clearly the rest of Omaha sees North Omaha in a certain light, and clearly that perception needs to be dealt with.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the first thing that when I saw the project and I came here to see the city, I mean, I think the poverty you can't dismiss point blank. I mean, you can't dismiss that whatsoever. But I think, somehow an image campaign or something that focuses on the image of the people, the positive things that are actually happening, the grassroots efforts that are being made by people, within the church community, none of that ever sees the light of day. All you hear is negative, 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 negative. And that's all people are going to believe. The first thing they see on TV is the last thing they're going to remember.
So how do you get the media to change their excessive reporting of only negative in the North Omaha community and put some of the positive things that are going on in this community on the air?
No, I think you're right, yes. I think the first thing, there needs to be a united stand among all the community members that live in North Omaha. That's why we're great to see such a diverse turnout of everyone who feels they want to represent their neighborhood, first of all. I think outside of that, I think we need to, in terms of having a single voice, we need to direct our charge towards, promoting the things that are positive. One, identifying what they are, and two, making sure that, the community itself keeps hammering at these negative comments. And every time something comes up, say, no, that's not true. Or if not, say we're having ways that we're addressing it. It's a large and complex problem. And again, I need input, and we all need input. We need to talk about this as a community, about how we address that. But I mean, that's the first place I think, we need to go, is changing the perception of this place. I want to pass it on to someone else. Right.
We definitely have an image building problem, and it's due to the news media of what he said. We have to change this horrible perception. When KFAV came out with that terrible parody, that just added insult to injury, and a lot of people believed in it. I was getting calls at City Hall saying, I'm afraid to go in your neighborhood. 2 businesses called me, 2 owners, and said, my business has dropped in the past week because of that parody. We have got to have a grassroots effort to tell the news media that there's not all those bad things that you portray on the air. It doesn't exist every day in North Omaha. There's problems in other parts of the city. You don't hear about that to the magnitude you hear about North Omaha. But then again, this is the start of a new day, I believe, which is going to promote changes in North Omaha. We've got to address the poverty that we read about in the World Herald article. We address that. We address other issues, housing, affordable housing, retail, and we have to do it now. If we don't do it now, then when? If not by us, by who? It has to start today and build. It's chamber-driven, but it's North Omaha steered. And that's very important to remember. Chamber-driven, North Omaha steered. It's a process, as David Brown said. We need your input. There's no footprint here. This is just information. You build on this. It's going to be built upon by talking to all of you, and we can change these bad perceptions if we work together.
There are a whole series of cards and comments and questions about retail. Let me run through those real quickly. What's the best utilization of retail? Perhaps an outlet mall would be good. Is there interest from major retailers to come into the area? What is planned for Ames from 28th to 52nd? In regard to Baker's Place, can a mixed-use facility, for example, seasonal industrial, be explored to nurture small businesses? How will the retail integrate with the residential area, and how can we keep the dollar and our dollars in North Omaha? I suggest we develop business in North Omaha. I mean, the purpose of these cards is, frankly, is not that we're going to have answers for you tonight, but what they do is help us to identify the issues. And we appreciate that there's a tremendous number of cards here. We will tabulate all of those, categorize them by theme or question area, and be sure to incorporate those into the study. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that there was a study that you guys have some study, and so just so we're all on the same page, the people that live here in this area that you're talking about, how do you get those studies to you?
Oh, the survey. No, the survey has not been taken yet. There was one card I saw that said, how will the survey be taken, whether it's a phone or mail? There will be a telephone survey, a randomly drawn sample. It will be a statistically valid survey. It will be a telephone survey. And if any of you receive that, please fill out the survey, because it's about 10, 12 minutes long. We're trying to keep it to that, but we will do a statistically valid telephone survey as a part of the project.
Good point. First, that we need to be prepared with some responses to, because my question
Yes, ma'am.
You say you're doing a study. How much is the study going to cost?
So these are just like project expenses, you might say.
Yeah, we have to have somebody ultimately who is paid to do the analysis, and then somebody else is going to wake up every morning and say, how am I going to get this study done? How am I going to implement this strategy? Yes.
So what do you, I mean, just off the cuff, realistically, you know, if you view that as seed money for a project, what are you hoping that this project generates?
Millions.
There you go.
Reinvestment in North Omaha, housing, business, infrastructure, millions of dollars of reinvestment will happen as a result of this $700,000 and some odd we're spending now. That's one of the reasons to do it. Now, again, you may be skeptical, but ultimately that's how the chamber has operated, the city has operated for years. You take dollars that you receive from folks who donate it, and you invest that money back in the community, and you see literally billions of dollars created in the community. We're going to see the same thing here in North Omaha.
So are you going to pay PayPal to bring an offshoot of their offices to our area so people don't have to drive 30 miles away to work at that place that can't get enough workers as it is?
We're going to compel folks who have a vested financial reasons to invest in North Omaha to do just that. To create jobs here or to create opportunities for people to go where those jobs are. You're not going to have every job, every person in North Omaha is not going to work in North Omaha. It's unrealistic to
But
think
some of
that's
us
going to
would like
happen.
to work here as it is. Like,
Absolutely.
Just a few
Some
of us.
people will end up working in North Omaha. Some people will have an easier time getting to work somewhere else. But the combination of it.
That lady over there is going to get a reason.
Ma'am.
Let's say, so these studies are basically not just for us here, but to justify to business investors why they should invest.
That's exactly why we're doing this. Ultimately, business investors have to have a package in front of them that says, where can I invest and how can I invest? If they're not doing the analysis themselves, we're going to take that analysis to them. Yeah, sir.
I think that the key challenge is going to be to instill pride in the people of Northeast Omaha compared to South 24th Street. I know that South 24th Street is growing and they're trying to develop another Mexico City. We're going to have to do something on North 24th Street, and to instill pride is going to be the key to development.
Sir. This gentleman actually walked in the door first from anybody else who got here this evening. I was afraid he was going to be the only one here. So I'll let you ask the question, sir.
I have a question regarding specialized transportation. My personal experience has been that a good percentage of the people that I know in the North Omaha area have limited transportation abilities. Looking at the statistics on the graphs and charts regarding public transportation, probably one of the few things that you can get on a bus in the morning, spend half a day, and not get still 2 miles from where you need to be. Is there consideration given and being formulated to develop specialized transportation in this area?
There is. We've got to sit down with the Metro Area Transit Board. They actually have a board of directors who work on schedules, bus schedules. You know, we just annexed Elkhorn, but a bus won't even go there. That's wrong. We have buses that won't go past the Old View Mall. We need express buses to take people to work. We're going to sit with Metro Area Transit and say, we need help. It's about time we bring the buses to the neighborhoods to take people to the jobs. Yes?
I want to go back to the very first question that was asked. Someone was talking about the perception that there was already a plan in place, and it was summarily dismissed as being obviously not the intent of this meeting. I would just caution you to say that perception is important, so I think I would take a step back and think about why that perception is there, maybe what you could do to address that, particularly if you want all of our input and support in this endeavor. Just a suggestion.
And I agree with skepticism because I wouldn't join this group when David said, Frank, come aboard. I said there's been 35 documented studies. I don't want to be part of something that's a rubber stamp. I don't want to put my name on it and won't. This has got to start fresh. There must be community input. And more importantly, there must be dollars to execute. We can have 1,000 plans. If there's no dollars, excuse me, to execute, it will all be for naught. We need a person who is going to help fundraise, tap into those dollars, bring those dollars into this community, build retail, build hope, build jobs, and affordable housing. We need a person to do that, to keep charge of the study, and that's why David outlined the dollars for a person to do this. But then again, the key is going to be the execution dollars to bring this to fruition. Yes?
Is the sewer separation project going to be completed before we do all this development, or are we going to develop it and then go back and try and fix the sewer system?
It's important. Go ahead.
So we're coordinating with them as they do their planning, but we're talking with them as well. So as we do our planning, we'll make sure that we know what they're talking about, so we don't tear something up that we're building or vice versa. Ma'am?
Well, going back to the crime thing, my brother had a job on 24th Street, and he lost his job because they had to close down because they were being robbed so much. And I've seen on the newspaper things like things like Mad Dads, and then some lady was having some program to help area youth in here create music and stuff. I mean, I see that there's positive influences here in North Omaha, but I agree that, you know, there's things that need to be done to change the perception, but there also needs to be done things to help keep our youths active so they're not into this crimes. Because I was on my street one day, there were like 50 kids. They were going to beat up some kid, and I had my niece in the car, and I got on the cell phone to call the police, and she's saying, "Don't call the police, don't call the police." And she was trying to tell me, they're not really beating each other up. That's for putting on the internet. And then she said, besides, it's not our job to take care of this. It's the job of the police. Like, there's no citizenship concept among the youth to even call for crime stoppage.
We'll not only deal with the perception that we may have outside the community, but the media might deal with us differently. And frankly, if we are creating more jobs and more economic opportunity, and the program that was in the paper yesterday starts dealing with youth and it starts impacting truancy and crime, maybe we start seeing that the statistics are going the other way as well. This isn't something you fix overnight. It's something that takes time, but we're about the business of getting it fixed.
I think this meeting alone is a positive.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think the problem with the media is much larger than just North Omaha. The media almost always focuses on the negative, beefs up conflict and so forth, and I think we need to address that in our journalism schools across the nation. So let's not just limit it to North Omaha.
Oh, she said that this is not just an Omaha phenomenon with the media looking at negative items. It happens all over the place, and it's something that needs to be dealt with in journalism schools. Yeah.
Is any part of the study going to look at racism and its impact on this area?
No. What was the question? Well, that study deal with racism and the impact on this area. To the extent that it has an economic impact, I'd say certainly. To the extent that it's a deterrent to economic growth, I'd say certainly. As a subcommittee that says we're only going to look at racism, no. But if it impacts the ability for us to develop this area as an economic force, then it has to be something that's dealt with.
I'm not going to say it, Bob. It will be addressed. It has to be addressed, Bob. Racism. It will be part of the study.
Yeah, there's no question that the racism, whether it's quite visible or quite subtle in Omaha, is going to be addressed. We're not going to have probably an answer that will change the years of history related to that issue. But it obviously is something that overlays and there are overtones that are related to many, if not every, of the issue within the North Omaha community. Charles?
I've got a two-part question. One of them is just to satisfy my own curiosity. How many people in this room actually live in the target area? We're talking about Cummings to Sorensen, 2nd Street to the river? How many people in this room actually live in the target area? The other question I had, having lived in Omaha all my life, I'm trying to figure out, why would I trust the Chamber of Commerce to do this? Why would I ever trust the Chamber of Commerce to do this? Anybody that has an answer, please give me one.
Why not?
Why not? Because you guys have a history. You have a history of destroying this here community. The Chamber of Commerce has participated over the years I've lived in Omaha, 63 of them, in destroying this community. Why would I now think that the Chamber of Commerce is going to support something that happens in North Omaha?
Is there anybody else standing up in front of you saying that they will lead a charge to improve North Omaha? Is there anybody else doing it?
Yes, there are. I write all the time to any entity that is not in this
Well,
city.
I appreciate that. Has anybody else been willing to go out and raise money to hire a consultant, to hire implementation, and make this thing move forward? Has any other business group stood up and said, we'll help you do this? Irrespective of what's happened in the past, is anybody today doing that? Dick Davis has got a group that's working on economic sufficiency in North Omaha. There are several others, but why not the Chamber of Commerce to stand up and say, we can cause economic development to happen? Why not?
The Chamber of Commerce can. My question is, why would we trust you after your history of what you've allowed to happen in this city to North Omaha?
What's your proposal?
We can all
I have a suggestion.
change it now.
I got a suggestion. Survey the businesses that are already in North Omaha and that are in the city and find out how many of them for years have never even hired a black person, don't have any black people employed in any respectable positions. And I think that will answer your question about why we would discuss an institution that has enabled this situation to exist all of our lives.
I would say to you that the Chamber of Commerce is only one piece of a larger puzzle. Just in terms of the steering committee, in terms of its makeup, as it turns out, African American community, executive committee, or the steering committee, I think we have the appropriate amount of representation throughout the chamber process to make sure that the concerns of the community is going to be recognized. But I think the most important thing, very frankly, is that, as many of you know, that we as folks have been meeting on a constant basis over the last 7 to 8 months. And with that, we need to be stepping up ourselves in terms of a commitment to ourselves. And as we do that, we're basically talking about finances, not in terms of raising dollars, raising our own dollars, African American dollars, North Omaha dollars, whatever that may be. I think what happens is that we need to do sort of a philosophy that says we understand what's happened in the past, but we also need to know and focus on the future. And we know as a people that we have the intellectual and financial capital to move forward. And we have that. And so when we're talking about the chamber, we want to have the chamber as a partner. We want to have community as a whole as a partner. We have to be in a position to understand if those things don't materialize, we have to be ourselves together and move this together in a positive way so things will happen. We're not ready right now to tell you the kinds of commitments, financial commitments, that they're going to be put forth on this initiative and even broader initiatives. But I will tell you that I believe that it's in the millions of dollars that we as folks in this community will be able to gear up and make things happen. We want to join with others. But we got to start somewhere. And I think that everyone, like myself, when we start to make this development and other initiatives into fruition, I've got to basically say, what am I going to do in terms of my part as relationships to develop? And I'm going to have to say to you, in 3 to 4 months, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm prepared to do that. Not only in terms of development, but also employment. You know, I have to basically say to you, this is what I'm going to do. Also in terms of education, I'm going to have to say to you, this is what I'm going to do. And if we, all of us together, start talking about what we're going to do individually, as a personal situation and a leadership situation, there'll be that quilt that will come out and do very well. Now the issue with David, Chamber, or anything else, there has to be a partnership. But I'm telling you right now, we are smart people. We are resourceful people. And we're going to get this done. And we're smart enough to know if we are going to get it done well or not so well. And we'll make sure that the community understands that it's well or not so well. So I think you have to make sure you work with everyone you have to do. What we want to do is we want to change those millions of dollars into 10 millions of dollars. But you have to do that in a collaborative way. So this is just the first of many meetings. We've had so many meetings already, Saturdays, evenings, etc., with a variety of community people. And this will be the last meeting. But I think what we have to do is we just have to wait, see if we can develop those relationships with the city government, with the mayor, with the chamber, with business leaders, etc. But I think we have the wherewithal within our community to make a real difference. And I'm personally committed to that. And I'm positive that I will get from the highest net worth African American and non-African American to the, I always say, to the most socially activist state senator and city council member to join together, with all of us together, and make this happen. I think we've gotten a unified voice in terms of what we need to do. A unified voice, not as many voices, but a unified voice. But I will promise you that we will continue to work on this very, very hard, do the right kinds of things that needs to be done, so we can do ourselves proud.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
You're hearing the voice of frustration. That's what you're hearing, because with over 170 some odd million dollars that comes out of this community, the people just can't understand why they have to travel west of 72nd Street when the chamber could steer some of that business over here east of 72nd Street. So that's the frustration that you hear.
And I understand that, and what my point to is the fact that I have to, and you have to, and other folks have to be in a position to say, and I'm ready to do that, to say, we will start and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to reform a company, or form a company, that will increase jobs by 100 folks, that entry level, that will be predominantly African American. My point to you is the fact that we're not going to be talking about the issues of what the problems were. We are here going to be talking about the solutions. And I'm just saying, this will be a solution-based proposal. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, with all due respect, Mr. Davis,
Yes.
with all due respect, the issue is that I've sat in, I don't know how many of these same type of meetings, and it's always solution-oriented. And what happens to the solution is, I just like to ask one question. All of these committees that have been formed, how many of those people, those committee members, live in North Omaha in the defined areas, besides possibly Frank? Who else? Who else?
And where's that proposal for those jobs even went out? I don't know if you applied for one.
If you're on a committee and you live in North Omaha in the target area, hand.
I live outside of her area.
Okay, you're not in this then.
I live farther north and a little bit to the west of it, but I'm just as much impacted because there's not a grocery store within 5 miles of my house.
Okay, but I'm talking about the target area.
And I care about North Omaha.
Let me respond to that.
Okay.
Because I want to.
Well, let me finish.
All right.
That's the first problem.
All right.
We got, what, 5 people maybe? So this is not the community input. The very fact that you had cards rather than having people stand up and raise their hands so you can screen the questions. And why, to the gentleman's point about why we don't trust,
This goes on every year. Every year we have a meeting, we have all these people. And I asked another question, were there not any brains in Omaha that could have worked this out, that we need to go to Chicago, New York, or wherever, and pay them that astronomical amount of money to study what we already know to be true?
Let me try to answer those questions in sequence. The first one, very frankly, is that there are going to be some African Americans putting down.
In the area.
Well, let me just say this to you straight up. Let me just say this to you straight up. I don't live in the area, but I'm third generation, got fifth generation. My daughter married somebody in the area. I have family in the area. I am fully committed to this situation. Now, let me just say to you, be real clear with you. In terms of scholarship, just education, not economics. I'm committed to, in my lifetime, make sure that there's $1 million of scholarship dollars for African Americans and people of color to make sure the dreams that you're talking about come into reality. So what I want you to understand is that at some point in time, we have to start joining together and say, even if I don't live in the area, I'm committed to the people of the area, and I will demonstrate that will happen. And in terms of the other issue about the employment, etc., I think right now what you have to do is give us some time to work through those issues, and then hold me accountable, and hold Frank accountable, and all the folks around here that are trying to do their best they can to make a difference. And then you can say to me, Dick, you've missed the mark. And I'm going to basically say, well, tell me how to improve that mark. Because very frankly, I don't want to do this if we're not successful. In terms of the consultants, we want the best and brightest we can in the nation. Because if I'm going to put investment dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever, millions of dollars, and all the other African Americans that will join with me in doing that, I want the best possible minds to tell me what's the best possible deal. Because if I don't have that, I've been knowing these people for all of my life. And I do not want them to be basically telling me, Dick, look at the bad deal that you've got into it. So I want the best minds I can nationwide to do that. Now we also have the right situation in terms of the local input. And I've been telling you, many of you folks around this group have seen me sit down and work with, talked about the various strategies and all the things that need to be done. I think what you have to do is give us a chance and believe that there is a chance. I believe in people. I believe in people in terms of all walks of life, etc. And so I'm saying that there are going to be other folks in the same situation. And I believe we're going to come up with a great package. The reason why is because we've got great people all around us trying to work with it. And I'm not going to lie to you and get sugarcoated. We have an economic development program, and it comes up that it's only got $100,000, $200,000 economic program, and we say, hey, here's the deal that we want to do. Look at what we've done. If it comes out and says that we need to have millions of dollars on an economic program to go unemployment to full employment, then we're going to say that to you. Now, what I want to say to you is that may take 7 to 10 years because we've devastated the infrastructure we have. But on the other hand, I can say to you, on the investment side, we might be able to give you a 2 to 3 window. We have to be honest and straightforward with you and stop jacking you around. And I'm telling you right now, that is my promise, and I'm going to do the best of my ability to do so.
I don't believe you are going to jack us around.
Ooh, preach in the church, sister.
And if you want to do economic development, I suggest you concentrate on small business development. Someone mentioned about how busy South 24th is. Well, South 24th is 99% mom and pop stores. Startups, most of which are drugstores, but they are busy and they produce.
They are, but here's a big difference between North 24th and South 24th. We don't have the buildings. We don't have those. No, we don't. The buildings. No, we don't. The buildings. We've looked at it. You're going to see the studies. The buildings aren't there as they are in South Omaha. build more retail. We have to. We have to work, this is, I'll tell you, I'm skeptical too, but I've got to trust someone, and I've never been, the council person here has never been invited to participate in studies, and then when they come to me at the very end, I show them where the data is wrong. And so those are put on the shelf. David Brown from the Chamber, from the very beginning, said, we need you, we need solutions for people who live in this district. This is the way we do it. We've got to start fresh sometime, someday, and it's now. Racism in the past, it's happened in the past. We've got to change this today, because as I said at the very beginning, if it's not now, then when? The Chamber's on board. The Chamber is the engine, but the steering wheel is all of you out there, the people who live in this district. If they don't listen to all of you, I'm walking away. That's my guarantee, but I know that they will. Just one second. We have to believe in someone. If we don't today, and everyone packs up their gear and goes home, then we're just going to sit and hear about how poor North Omaha is. We have to start today. We can no longer look at 17% poverty in this district. 1%, the highest, we're the highest in the nation with children who live in poverty, African American kids. Families were third in the nation. That's deplorable. If we don't do anything today, those numbers will get worse. And I don't know how far we can go to worse when we're already number one. There's got to be changes today. You got to believe. And this is the start.
Before I want to respond, we'll do that. Let me respond. I have opened my, if you have an economic issue, my telephone number is 399-9090, extension 112. There are folks around here that have individual concerns, etc. There's not a bad idea or a bad thought. So if rather, the best way of doing this is one-on-one, working through issues, making sure everything goes as well as you can. So if there's some issues there, make sure that you can, if you want to talk to me and get concerned, have any concerns met, that would be great. You said what was that?
Repeat that number.
399-9090.
Get him a t-shirt, get him the microphone.
All right, first I'd like to say that I believe that economic growth is very, sorry, just kind of under the pressure, everybody. I believe that economic growth is very important to North Omaha, but also to sustain that growth, we need to invest in our young people as a youth myself. Because we've gone through so many things. I'm happy that everybody is here that has interest in helping the problem and that. I'm happy that everybody came out and showed up and supported this ordeal. But I believe that the youth will help sustain the economy growth. And we really need to put a power back into the community. But the youth should be our main target. As a young African American, there's so many stereotypes. And it was hard for me to even get to where I am now. I'm in college now, and the road was tough. And I didn't have a lot of opportunities, but I think we should really target the youth. Economic growth is very important.
We already have to, okay? I am. It's not going to work for black. It's going to benefit those who create black.
That's the issue of gentrification. I think in terms of gentrification, the first thing that needs to happen is that the people who live in Omaha need to own in Omaha. And I think that's the primary start. I think
and you develop us to the point that we can't afford to live here anymore.
Thank you. First of all, I really want to commend you on this meeting. I think it's excellent. But a question I would just like to ask Mr. David Brown, I think that's your name. How are you, sir?
Great, how are you?
Good, good. The question I would just like to ask, and I think this is where maybe some skepticism is coming. let's just take the $350,000 survey or whatever that money's going to be spent for. Is there a minority firm that is getting that money? And I think that's where it's going. We don't have a problem with you. It's the system. And I think that's what we're really questioning, because the system is going to always take care of the system. And that's the way I think we're feeling. If the system would say, okay, we want to start developing in North Omaha, and we're going to start right now, we're going to have a minority firm that is going to be getting this money to do the survey, or whatever else is coming. I think that's where the skepticism is coming. It is not that we don't want to see things happen, because this is very important. The other thing is that if you're going to have businesses coming in here, then they will be employing people, but where will the level go, and how high can they go in that corporation? Is there going to be any businesses that are going to be minority owned that have been helped to get the money so they can do their business also? And the other question, I really appreciate him giving $1 million